Hi, this is Mike from the Run Testers, and I'm going to be speaking about this, the Apple Watch Series 5, specifically what it's like to run a marathon. I imagine there's a lot of you, or a lot of people out there that are starting to train for marathons, or looking at maybe buying a watch to train with. I know I get asked a lot about whether you should buy this for to train for a marathon. So I wanted to give my kind of overview of what it's like to run for that distance, from kind of getting set up, what it's like during the race, and obviously looking at your data and making sure it's all kind of nice and accurate afterwards. So yeah, this is a breakdown of what the Apple Watch Series 5 is like to run a marathon. So before I get into what it's like on race day, I wanted to talk a little bit generally about running with the Apple Watch. And to be honest, of all the smartwatches I've tested, this gives the best kind of experience. It's kind of very easy to set up and just kind of go and start running. The screen is great. The screen, this is one of the best displays you'll find on a smartwatch. It's easy to kind of view your data. You can have that discussion about rectangular or circular watch sizes and watch designs. I'm absolutely fine with this rectangular kind of screen. It's good for looking at your data. It's good for absorbing your kind of real-time run metrics. And yeah, I think it's absolutely fine on that front. I did want to talk about the bands because I think it's important. I didn't run with this Velcro number, but I did use one of Apple's sport bands, and to be honest, it was absolutely fine. It was comfortable, I didn't have any irritation, and I just think they look nice, and I think Apple made some of the best bands for kind of smartwatches in general. So in terms of kind of navigating and with the watch, predominantly it's a screen, so you're swiping to kind of change data screens. My real kind of little issue is when you finish a run, you have to swipe through to another screen to kind of end the workout. So it's not like on a normal sports watch where you can just hit that button and pause, or to end the workout. When you're at the end of a race, it's you're kind of all over the place, and trying to kind of swipe through that screen can be a bit of a pain. Since I've kind of done this race, I've been informed that you do have a similar kind of feature on the Apple Watch, although I've just found it really kind of fiddly to kind of do, so I still think you're stuck with the kind of swiping through to end your workout. But on the whole, I like running with the Apple Watch. But let's get into what it's like when it comes to marathon day. So I'm actually going to start the start line, which kind of makes sense, but I'm going to kind of go back later to what I did earlier in the day and in the morning, which will kind of all make sense later on. But ultimately, you get there and you're getting ready to race and you're kind of in the zone. The good thing is you're literally a couple of clicks away from getting ready to track your workout. The GPS signal pickup is pretty rapid on this. On that point, if you run with your iPhone and your Apple Watch, definitely go and check Nick's Run Hacks video, which kind of tells you a little bit more about making sure you're using the GPS on your Apple Watch. I didn't run with my iPhone, so I was solely relying on the GPS from my Apple Watch. And on that front, yeah, really quick to pick up a signal. And essentially, you're going into the workout app. I used Apple's own workout app because I wanted to get the experience of what it's like to take the Apple Watch out of the box, use what Apple has put on there, and just get running. So I didn't use any third-party apps, and yeah, you kind of open the app, select that kind of outdoor run, and then there's a countdown, and then you're kind of ready to go. And then yeah, during the race, pretty standard experience in terms of a running watch. you get some kind of vibrating buzzes when you hit the kind of key distance markers, and it was pretty much in line with the kind of course markers during the race, so I had no real issue with that. Again, I talked about kind of being able to absorb that information when you're running, and the screen is great for that, so no real complaints about that. The data seemed pretty accurate. I was running with a Garmin 4 and a 945 on my other wrist, so I had something to kind of compare it to, and I've run a lot of races with that watch, so you know, I know it's kind of reliable kind of in terms of what it delivers, and generally, yeah, it was a good watch to run with, but then I'm going to get back to the stuff before the start line, which is related to the battery life. So let's get into battery life, which is a pretty big deal. Obviously, you want something that can kind of cover that distance and not die on you. All of Apple's smartwatches kind of claim an 18-hour battery life, that's in kind of standard smartwatch mode. When you start factoring something like tracking a run, you're using the GPS, which will drain the battery, so it's obviously less than those 18 hours, but it still should be enough for you know, around 4 hour marathon. Now, Apple kind of suggests that you do a few things to make sure it kind of lasts for something like this. So they'll have a mode to disable the heart rate monitoring, also disconnecting it from your phone, and also turning off the always on display, which is now on the Apple Watch Series 5. So in my test, I chose not to do all of that. I kept the heart rate monitoring on because I wanted to test the reliability of the heart rate on the Apple Watch. I did turn off the always on display mode, and I did, as I mentioned earlier, not run with my iPhone, so it's not pulling in notification or anything else that could drain the battery. And to be honest, it was generally fine until about 3 hours into the race. And I kind of got a notification saying, do I want to move to the kind of power saving mode because the battery was running low. Now if I moved that power saving mode, I'd risk losing my data, or you know, some of my data. I would have been back to a normal kind of watch mode and I wouldn't have had the rest of the race to cover. So I took a chance and I ignored that battery saving message. And it got to about half an hour, maybe 20 minutes before the end of the race. I kind of looked down and the screen was dead, so it didn't last my marathon, which was around 3:45, and probably died about 20-25 minutes before the end of the race. Which was disappointing because up until that point it was a really strong, good experience. I kind of talked about going back to what I did before I got to the start line. I had the Apple Watch charged overnight, as early as I could have it on the charger in the morning before I had to get up out of my hotel and get to the start line. And even getting to the start line, I didn't have it connected to my phone, so it wasn't draining it unnecessarily before the race. So it's kind of disappointing that it didn't make it through. But I think if I had maybe disabled all those kind of other features that it suggests, it probably would have made it through. But for me, I wanted to know what the heart rate monitor would be like for a marathon. So I chose to keep that on, and that's what I got from it. So, finished the race, managed to kind of get back to my hotel room, get washed up, and get this on a charger, so I can kind of have a look at the data that it did kind of catch before the battery died. And to be honest, what I did get was pretty good. The things that I kind of look for, kind of pace, split times, cadence, those kind of things were pretty much in line with the Garmin. In terms of heart rate monitoring, it was pretty good as well. I think Apple are probably some of the best in terms of offering solid and kind of accurate heart rate monitoring from the wrist. Against a chest strap, it was kind of 1, maybe 2 maximum out of the kind of BPM for average and maximum heart rate, which is kind of fine, and the graphs kind of showing very reliable, very kind of similar graphs. So yeah, on the whole, data was good up until the point that the screen went dead, and pretty reliable up until that point. So, the big question, should you run a marathon with the Apple Watch Series 5? Obviously, based on my experience, probably going to say no. Now, obviously, had I done all the things that Apple kind of suggested, which was disable a lot of the features that I wanted to kind of look at, then yeah, maybe it probably would have lasted. But I think that means you have to think about a lot of things on that day to ensure that it gets through the entire race, and even just after the race, and when you kind of want to use it when you're all done. I think, you know, you run a relatively quick marathon, it's probably going to last you, but you know, you also probably want to still be connected to your phone. You probably still want to maybe use music. You may want to use the heart rate monitor. So I think if you're willing to kind of sacrifice some of those features, then you probably get through a marathon with it. But I just personally, I think that there's a lot you have to think about on that day to make it work for you. So that's my overview of run testing or even race testing the Apple Watch Series 5 at a marathon. If you've got any other questions, let me know in the comments. Myself, Kieran and Nick have spent a lot of time running with the Apple Watch, so I'm sure we can answer all of your questions. Like and subscribe as always, and see you for the next Run Testers video.